Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. We are here again for another session of community conversations for the Technomatics Virtual User Group. And our topic for today is how to assemble in plant simulation. As a reminder, we are live as always. We are recording the session, and we do have an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. But I will introduce our speaker. Most of you probably already know Mr. Stefan Bongso. Stefan is a freelance simulation expert who has been working in this space for decades and has completed hundreds of projects and training sessions. Stefan has 5 books on plant simulation, is working on a 6th book, and is one of the leading contributors to our Siemens software community for PLM. Our big steps for the tutorial today are using the assembly station, the assembly using the pick and place robot, and assembly using SimTalk. So those are the 3 big sections. Of course, as always, we have a live Q&A following the tutorial. So definitely you can use the chat if something comes up while we're going through. But you can definitely raise your hand using the button in the upper center of your screen. So there should be a hand raise button there, and we'll be happy to take you off mute so you can ask a question verbally as well. So that is all for my introduction, and I'll hand things over to you, Stefan.
Okay, different ways to assemble parts in plant simulation. I'm doing here a very basic model. I want to assemble on a container 6 parts in different ways. And so I change first the dimension of the container, and I start with a source. And the source feeds assembly station. This is our basic element for assembly processes. I need another source for the part I want to assemble, and then should start a conveyor, a very long conveyor here. And all the other steps should happen here on the conveyor. I want to model a conveyor line, and on the conveyor in several places parts should be assembled, and I want to show different ways to do this. Okay, assembly station. It's worth to have a look on the assembly station in each new version. Siemens changed the assembly station in each main release, it seems so. This source should produce a container, and this provides one part. And then I connect first the source with the main part to the assembly station, and then the source with the part. We need to do some settings here. First, if you don't want to delete all the parts, then you should change the setting to attach amuse. Here you can define one assembly table, for instance, depend on predecessors. The first predecessor here, it comes, this is the main part, it comes from predecessor number 1, and I want to assemble one part from predecessor number 2, and so I need to define this. Predecessor number 2, one part. Okay. Here you can set up time if plant simulation collects all parts. If all parts are together, if you have all parts for the assembly process, then this processing time starts. and we should see here that we assemble one part here on this palette, and then it goes further. This is the basic object that we can use to model assembly processes. Another object that is already set up for assembly is the pick and place robot. We need a pick and place robot, and we need a source for a part. And the pick and place robot should assemble one additional part to this palette. I connect the source here and assign part 1. And then you can drag and drop the pick and place onto the conveyor, and it comes different possibilities here. Pick part, okay, we don't want to pick a part. I want to load a part onto a container. So you select the operation load part, and Blend Simulation will create a sensor here in this position. And then it works already. So now the palette stops here, and the pick and place robot fills up the container here up to its capacity with parts, but I don't want to assemble 5 parts. I only want to assemble 1 part. And so I need to change here. I need to add a sensor control to this sensor here. Change the basic behavior of this Blend Simulation object. I create a new control with F4. And now it's my responsibility to create a logic here. First, I stop the palette. And next, I need to wait until 2 parts are on the palette. And this I can do with wait until. At point mu is 2. And then I start the palette again. And now this palette leaves this position already after 1 additional part is assembled. And this is what I want to see here. And so you can use the pick and place robot to assemble parts, only 1, or fill the complete palette with parts 1 by 1 without any programming inside of the robot. And the robot here has a special exit behavior. And you see here target selection, load part onto MU at sensor. You can see here we have 2 other options. First one is the same exit strategy, like, for instance, a station, and place part at sensor. Then you can place the part directly on the conveyor and not onto the pallet. Okay. So next, you can, of course, also use SimTalk to assemble something. I want to have here a station. For instance, this should be a station that provides some services for assembly. Then I have a source with another part. I connect the source with the part here with the station. I want to create a part B to have a different color. Okay, one problem here is you need to wait until here is one pallet to stop the pallet in front of the station. And so we need to have here a small sensor control. And I need a variable here to know what pallet is here on this sensor. And I name it container 1. Data type should be object. And the initial value should be void. Okay, and if one pallet is come to this sensor, then it should set this variable to itself, and then I can wait here and exit control until this variable is not void anymore, and then I know, okay, here is one container available on this position. It's stopped, and then I can transfer the part on this container. And so I need a very simple sensor control. I create here a new sensor. I create a control. At least I need to stop the container. And I set my variable to add. And so I can access the container from the exit control of the station. So here I need exit control. It's not connected with a connector here. I don't want to let the part run over the conveyor here. And so I need exit control. And the first step is I need to wait until container 1 is not void anymore. And then I move the part into the container. Normally it takes a little time, and so you can wait, for instance, 5 seconds if this is the loading time you need to move the part into the container. And then you can start the container again. and you need to set container 1 to void. For the next round, then it becomes, then you can wait again until the container 1 is not void anymore for the next pallet. Quite simple. Okay, our third part. The second part by pick and place. Now it stops. Container 1 is here. It waits 5 seconds. What's wrong? Oh yeah, I have a failure here. It's a container underline 1. Yeah, this is my failure here in my code 7. And then, okay, fast. So, and now the part goes on the pallet, and we have the third part on our container. So next, I want to assemble one part with the worker. And so I need one additional source for the next part. And I need 2 workplaces. One workplace for the source. And I activate the transport importer. And I need a second one. Oh, it's like this way. And I connect this with the conveyor. You can do this starting from 2404. Now also the conveyor has a transport importer. And I need, like here, like container 1, I need in the same way, a very simple sensor control to be sure, okay, there is a container available. I can move the part into the container. I need to wait until the container has reached this position. And so I copy this variable here, changes to container 2. And I need one additional sensor and the sensor control F4. The sensor control is the same. I have some problems with my keyboard here. I need to stop the container at point stopped. And I set container 2 to add, that I can access the container with this global variable here. So I need to set a destination for the transport of the worker, and the destination can be the conveyor. And so I need to change here the transport importer of the source. Okay, I need a broker and a worker pool. And I need to set a budget for the destination for the MU, and the budget is conveyor. Okay, we can have a look at what's the behavior then. You have now here additional settings for the workplace, where the worker should go and where the workplace is located. And here automatically it's activated at entrance. And so the worker will load the part at the entrance of the conveyor. We can have a look here. Okay. This sometimes happens here. The set of this workplace is not 0, and so you need a step to reach the workplace. Okay, I need to change here this 3D 0. This is not 0. However, I change it to 0. And then I can try it. Yes. Okay, you can check this with O, and okay, it wants to be located here. It's inside of a buried area, and so the worker cannot reach this. Next try. Okay. And now here the worker is going here, but moves the part at the start of the conveyor, and this is totally wrong, this behavior, and so we need to change this. And we can use the unload control of the workplace. This is new in 2404. You can change the behavior of the worker here by assigning a method here. On unload, it's a lot of stuff here. I don't need this code. And here I need to wait until container 2 is not void anymore. And you can access the worker here with add, like in all other controls in Plant Simulation. And with cont, we get access to the parts that the worker is carrying, and insert I use here to load the part into container 2. Maybe I need to wait some seconds, wait 2 seconds to place the part. Then I can start. It's not my day. Okay, I start the container, and then I set this variable back to void to be able to wait for the next container. The unload control plan simulation will call when the worker enters the workplace, and if you move the part to another station, to another place, then the mediation of the worker will finish, and the worker goes back and takes the next part. And so the worker goes to this place here, and now he has to wait until container 2 is not void anymore. And first we need what's wrong here? Okay, this is crazy. There's no event anymore in the event list, and so plan simulation stops the simulation automatically. I create a little bypass to have events at each time. It's enough to have a source and a train, and then I connect this and set a very long interval here. And then the event list is never empty. Oh, yes, I have destroyed something here. Predecessors. Yes. Okay, I make a trick here. I jump over this assembly station. Okay. It's live. So now the pick and place loads 2 parts because it's my condition for moving the pallet forward. But the white part here, it's from the worker, and you see it's working. And one important change we need to do here in the transport importer of this source. By default, there is a wait for free target activated, and in our case, we cannot do this because this pallet, maybe we have different pallets here, and so the conveyor will not be empty all the time, and so we need to deactivate wait for free target in the transport importer that the worker gets the next part here. Right. So next, you can also pull by yourself in the sensor control parts, for instance, from a source. This is quite simple. I need a source and a store, for instance. And I need this sensor control. And again, at point stopped, it's true. Then wait for loading time, maybe 5 seconds. Maybe wait until store occupied. There's something in the store. And then store point cont, point move to add. And then add stop false. And this will pull parts from other objects. Here in this case, we have exit control, and we push parts here onto the container. In this case, the container itself pulls part from the store onto this container. Yes. And one last way to assemble is the transfer station. Still exists also in the newest version. It's containing the transfer station. And the transfer station is not by default in your class library. And so we need first to add the transfer station to your class library. So you need to go to manage class library. And then you find the transfer station here in libraries. Transfer station, okay, apply. And then you can find the transfer station in tools, transfer station, and you need to pull it in your. The transfer station transfers part from one object to another. And so I need an object first, source. This would be a source number 7. And you need some settings here in the transfer station. Load is okay. You need to define the location of the part. The location of the part is source 7. And then you need to define the target is on conveyor. Apply, and then you need to define the sensor position. I create a sensor here. It's near 21 meters. And so I define the sensor position 21 here. Apply. You can define the time. Maybe it's 2 seconds. And there are some advanced attributes. For instance, if you want only load one part, then you can define it here, load, unload 1 block, or 2, or what you want. Okay, it stops automatically the container at Hardship Station, and these are the settings you need to do. I'm not sure how long this object exists. What's now here? Workplace one. What's wrong here? Okay. Okay, now transfer station takes the next part and moves to our pallet, and then the pallet is full. There are some other ways to assemble in Plant Simulation. You can use the portal crane, for instance, to load transporter. It's not unusual to do this. You can also use the gantry crane to assemble something. You only need to define the object you need as a destination for the transport. And so there are other ways, but I guess these are the basic strategies to assemble. Okay, that's all. Any questions? Okay.
The first one that came through was said, one crane lifts the front portion of the part and another crane lifts the end portion of the part. Two cranes are required to lift the same part at the same time. Like, is it possible to do it? Maybe.
Okay, the part can only be located on one crane, but you can move cranes together as synchrone. One crane is the master and the second crane is the slave, and so we can model this by loading it on the master crane, the part, and the slave crane has to follow. Yes, it works in this way, but you cannot locate one part on two different objects. It's not possible. This is not possible.
Yeah, there was also some discussion. Alex and some other folks were talking about the wait for free target, the way that activated the worker broker reserves, I guess, which made the pallets stop. They couldn't enter. Is that something you could look at or explain again?
Yes. The destination. Here, the destination of the part in the transport importer is the conveyor. And if you have several parts on the conveyor, like here, it's 1, 2, 3 pallets are waiting on the conveyor, and you wait for a free target, then it needs to wait until the conveyor is completely empty. But in this case, it's never completely empty. You need one part. Here, you need the pallet for assembly. And so conveyor is not empty, and this will block the worker. He will not get a second part. The first part he gets because at the start, the container is empty. And so if I activate this, then he gets the first part. Because at the starting point, the conveyor is empty, he gets one part, but then he don't get another one. And so this transport importer will not called until it's complete empty. if one left here, then he can go to the next one. So now this leaving here, and now this conveyor was very short time empty, and then the transport importer is working. And if I change here, yeah. So this is one you need to keep in mind that you have some constraints here. If you it's by default it's activated, and so we need to keep this in mind that this can cause problems. Okay.
There was a discussion going on about running the assembly simulation and getting errors around load capacity of the machine parts being insufficient.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happens here. I create this new, and I set a new assembly station. And I connected in the wrong way. This is first here. This is the source for that part. Then this one, and this one. Then I said again attach MUs, main MU from predecessor number 1. This is default setting, and predecessors from predecessor 2. I want to have 1. So if I now start the simulation, then I get the error, okay, load capacity of the main part is not sufficient. This is because the predecessor number 1 is this one here, and from this predecessors, the part is coming. And this is wrong. Here in this case, the pallet comes from predecessor number 2. And so this setting is wrong here. Main MU from predecessors 2. Okay, then he says, okay, we cannot have the main part in this list here, and so I need to change this. We need 1 part from predecessor number 1. And mostly it's wrong connectors. And so now it works. The easiest way is to delete all the connectors that coming in here into the assembly station and connect them new, and then it should run. Okay.
All right, so we had a big question on how can I start my simulation journey? What are some prerequisites and some skills to learn?
It is really helpful if you have learned another programming language, but it's not really necessary. And you can find in the help here, if you go to help and contents. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, it's not the right help. Okay, if you go into the help and contents, and then there is a step-by-step help here. And my if you really want to start with a learning plan simulation, then you should do all chapters from the step-by-step help. step by step through this step-by-step help. And there's also SimTalk here inside, starting from a certain point. And this will help you to start with plan simulation in the right way. And you can also find a lot of stuff if you start simulation completely new. And you find here videos, make all of them, and you have a lot of example models. And here the small examples, it's a great source for checking out a lot of stuff. And these are the first steps. And if you're ready with these steps, then you can take my last book, and there you can find almost 300 additional examples.
Well, that's a good segue into the question that Paulo asked, can you share this file? So Stefan always shares the files that go with the recordings, and we'll put it together with the recording in the community forums. So just wanted to shout that out. And some people had asked about the recordings. I gave a list. There's a URL in the chat right now if you scroll up, and that tells where the list is. And so I am going to steal the screen for 1 second, Stefan, to show them. And there are more questions, but I just want to show the forum. If you're looking at the screen, give me 1 second. This one, you should see a forum page. And you can actually click right now on that link. It will take you to the Plant Simulation Virtual User Group topic. So this is the forums for the Siemens software community. We have an area just for all these recordings Stefan has done. He's a community catalyst. We have another catalyst, Alex, that's done a couple of videos, tutorials for us as well. So they're there at that URL. So click on that URL. All the videos are there. And Stefan, on Friday, I'll put the recording, and then Stefan will put the model there, and all the other models that he worked on. You can also find them there that he's done for our tutorial. So definitely click on that URL, and then the animation, the GIF is showing you that you should follow this topic. So after you go there, click the follow button, and then click the little envelope icon there and select every post. So if you select that, then you will get an email when we post the video, you'll get an email. When we post the next topic and the registration link, you'll get an email. So it's very useful. I think it's more than 160 people now who are following, so that you will get instant notification. Otherwise, you have to wait until however you found out about today. So just wanted to show that one. And then those are the next two topics. It's also a link you can click right now. So how to dismantle and plant simulation, you can click there to go to registration page. And then overall equipment availability and efficiency. So OEA and OEE, you can click that right now to go to those registration pages. But we have quite a lot of questions. Let's see where we are to go back to questions. There's one by Amir.
How can we model an assembly station where multiple types of parts are attached to a main MU at the same location, with each part requiring a different processing time and a worker with a specific skill set? Yes.
Okay, so
if you really need to change the skill set or the services of the worker for each step, then maybe it's the best way is to simulate or model this in a subframe where you only have one part, but several assembly stations, and in each station you can assign another service, or you use the method out-in -1, and there should be there is a webinar about this, how to create sub-services in plant simulation. You can find this here in the user in the virtual user group. So you can at the end of one assembly step, you can move the part back to the same station or use out in -1 to start the next subsequence, and you can change before the service table to get another worker. But you need to check it in each version of Plant Simulation. In version 2504, you have you can already define a sequence of assemblies and the assembly list itself, but you cannot change the service in between, and so you need to set several services at the same station. But you can find a webinar to this topic. We had already this topic. Okay. This various stream mapping concept helps to get started in Plant Simulation. It's a third-party product in Plant Simulation, and yes, you should start with a simple task first, and handling the value stream mapping library is not so easy, and so it's not a good starting point. Any additional questions?
Yeah, you can still raise your hand as well if you want. While you're thinking of a question before we go, I definitely want to show you the slide on the screen now to remind everyone that we have our customer event, Realize Live, the Europe version, because we just got back from the Americas in Detroit, is in Europe. We'll be there June 30th through July 2nd in Amsterdam. So this is our 3-day digital transformation exhibition and training conference. But in Europe, we have a specific plant simulation user track. So there is still time to do just the 1-day pass if you want to join Stefan, Alex, I don't know who else from our super users, Community Catalyst. They will definitely be there. I'll be there. And you can definitely click on that link on the screen if you want to learn more about the plant simulation user track, or if you want to learn about the full conference, which shows all of the Siemens software portfolio. So definitely just some info. If you'll be there, definitely come say hi. There's an area for the customer community called the Community Corner. So, and Stefan, you're doing a session, right?
Yes, I present how to synchronize the worker and cranes. Okay.
That sounds awesome. So yeah, we've still got a couple of minutes left for questions. And then if there are no more questions, I'll say this as well. Be sure to check out the link once again to the forums. The video will be posted there sometime on Friday. So you can click there, follow and subscribe. And then there's also a link to Stefan's community profile. You can click there if you want to see his community profile. And he's often there if you mention him to answer a question about one of his tutorials. So, any final words?
Thank you. Until next.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no more questions, yeah, thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the forums.
Goodbye.
Bye.